Hi, this is Haley. Um, this video is going to be chapter 9 and chapter 10 of the novel I've written, WristClocks, Time Is Not Yours to Keep. Let's get into it, I guess. Chapter 9, Through Her Eyes. A sister's documents lead to a corpse, and a truth Mason can't ignore. These deaths aren't all his. He hadn't always been a killer. That was the mistake most people made, even the smart ones. They thought killers snap, that they're made by rage and trauma, or something sharp enough to split the psyche down the middle. That's not how it worked. He started as a collector. You remember the first one? Not the first victim. No. That was later. But the first moment. He had been 15. His father dropped the glass clock he kept on the mantel for decades. Time stopped at 7:46 p.m. They didn't speak after that, not once. It was stupid, the fight. A missed appointment, a late dinner. But it had fractured something in both of them. And when his father died 5 years later, alone and surrounded by silence, that moment, 7:46, was the only thing that had remained. He had carved it into the back of the clock. Then the collection began. Tick, tock. He watched Ellis again, now silently, as she stared at the newest carving, the 341 victim. He didn't need to look at the body anymore. He'd already committed the shape of the wound to memory. "You're getting better," he said. She didn't look up. "I always was." He smiled faintly, but something inside him itched. Not jealousy, something colder. Possessiveness, maybe. She had taken his gift and made it her own. Second hands, extra lines, delicate curves. Her clocks whispered where his shouted. She was becoming too good. Tick, tock. Mason stood over the 6th victim, male, early 40s, pale, expression vacant but peaceful. Upright again, like Amelia, but this time at a desk, a voicemail left open on his phone, never played. Carving, 341. The clock on the desk said 5:12, but Mason had learned by now that these weren't deaths. They were timestamps. She turned to Vega. "Get his records. Family. We need voicemails too. Find out what happened at 3:41. Vega raised her brow. "You think we can still trace that far back?" "Someone could," Mason said, flipping through Sarah's folder. A torn hospital intake form caught her eye. Ellis' name, date of minutes, August 14th, 2003. The day she stopped talking. Below that, scribbled in a corner, a sentence in quotes. "Time doesn't heal, it counts." Mason whispered it aloud, fingers tightening. "That's not our handwriting." Tick, tock. She'd been clumsy with the blade the first time, but not scared, never scared. He watched her carve 4:56 into the arm of a man who hadn't even known she was there. It was her moment, the one thing she claimed. The time she woke in that tub all those years ago, soaked and shaking, heartbeat hammering against nothing. It wasn't the time of trauma, it was the time of survival, the moment. That was when he knew she wasn't just a copycat. She was something worse. the mirror. She didn't kill because of him. She killed for the same reason as him. They didn't preserve time for the dead. They preserved it for themselves. Tick, tock. The handwriting in the corner, it matched one of the other files. Not Ellis, but another earlier case. One not connected. One marked as suicide. Mason pulled it out, laid it beside the others. The style of carving, the timestamp, the lack of trauma. Her hand shook. There was someone before Ellis, someone who taught him. Tick, tock. He felt it again, the ticking beneath the surface, a time he had never shared, not with Ellis, not with anyone. 6:33 a.m. The moment his clocks had started, not from grief, not from guilt, but from something quieter, older. A breath that had ended too soon, a woman, a stairwell, a voice calling his name in silence. He had carved that time only once into the floorboard beneath his childhood bed. It was still there, untouched, waiting. Tick, tock. Chapter 10. Methods of dying. Each victim dies differently, but those with a second hand share one wound too many. The case file was brittle with age. No digital copy existed, not officially. It had been buried under misfiled suicide reports and decades-old psychiatric holds. My brain. Mason sat at her desk, the blinds drawn shut, her fingers flipping carefully through each faded page, the victim's name barely even recorded. Karen B., age 29, found deceased in stairwell of a residential building. No witnesses, no next of kin. She'd seen 100 files like that. What made this one stand out was the handwriting. Same angular strokes, same pressure. Same small, curved underline on the T. In time. Doesn't heal, it counts. And in the original Emmy's notes, scribbled in the corner, marking on the inner thigh, symbol unclear, possibly a timepiece. There had been no photo of it, no sketch, no follow-up. Mason leaned back in her chair, heart kicking up slightly. The date stood out. August 1993, 10 years before Ellis. She turned to Vega. Dig into any suspicious deaths or psych episodes tied to stairwell falls in that area. Look for clock references, especially between 91 and 95. Vega just nodded. Tick. The morgue was quiet, clinical, cold, even for the dead. Mason stood next to the medical examiner, Dr. Latham. As he flipped on the overhead monitor, Amelia's file glowed blue in the darkened room. Next to it, victim 6, the one with 341 carved on his wrist. You asked me to compare the cause of death across victims, Latham said. Voice even. Here's what I found. He clicked the remote once. Images flickered by. No two deaths are the same. Morgan and Joyce, slight overdose, trace barbiturates, pollen, gunshot, but no powder residue. Amelia, cardiac arrest, no blockage. All unusual, but nothing exact. Mason frowned. So no repeat method? Not exactly, he said, except... He clicked the remote again. A new image came up. Wrist carving, second hand. This is where it gets interesting. The victims with the second hand carved in, their trauma sites align. Not method, but placement. He gestured to the body. This one, ruptured artery in the upper left thigh. Amelia had a faint hematoma on the same side. And Joyce? Crushed vertebrae. But guess which side she landed on? Mason stared at the screen. Left. He nodded. All of them. Every second-hand victim had trauma centered on the left side of the body. Her mind spun. Intentional? She asked. If it's not a coincidence, then it's a pattern. She stepped back, something crawling beneath her skin. The pictures of the clocks Ellis drew always had a second hand, and the image of Ellis in the hospital came to mind. Her left wrist bandaged. That was her mark, but now the wound said something else, something hers. Are we looking at two killers? She asked. Latham hesitated. I don't think we ever weren't. Tick, tock. She stood in front of the mirror, a scalpel in one hand, a piece of fruit in the other. She carved slowly, patiently, letting the juice run in rivulets down her wrist. Not blood, not yet. She wasn't practicing anymore. She was choosing. Her own list was growing now. People she remembered, people who made her who she was before he found her. Ones who wounded her, abandoned her. Those who made her believe she was broken. He didn't need to know about those. Not yet. She traced a line in the condensation on the glass, drew a tiny clock. 7:06. She smiled. Tick. She didn't wait